Ascension Timeline Rebellion. Dear Ascending Family, we are living through a great transition and ascension process from a dark eon to a new eon. Many of the themes that were seeded by dark forces tens of thousands of years ago of human subjugation and enslavement are being reasserted in an attempt to maintain control. Yet most of humanity is unable to connect the dots or consciously participate in collapsing this timeline as we move toward a collective awakening. With the return of solar dragon level consciousness and the restoration of many of the aeonic couples in our system, our ground crew is strengthened in collaboration with Guardian Host. A tipping point has been reached, and through a recent sequence of grid work projects, more detail is being uncovered about humanity's true history, design, and purpose, as well as those who have tried to harness, desecrate, and enslave the various tribes within the angelic human race. With the return of the 11th tribe Atlantean dragon queen Merida, the triple solar Raisha that embodies the original Emerald Founder records for the Celtic Arthurian Grail lines, the timeline wars, clearings, and spiritual body retrievals have been focused upon the cluster of timeline trigger events that were set into motion during the Ascension Timeline Rebellion approximately 22,000 years ago. As humanity is completing the timeline trigger events of the Ascension Timeline Rebellion, which manifested as the consciousness enslavement of human beings by those intruders that invaded our planet, the shackles of mental bondage connected to mind control transmissions suppressing the Atlantean records are beginning to dissolve. Awakening humans are at the crossroads in the organic ascension timeline in which they are facing the next stage of the consciousness evolution cycle that includes a newly discovered personal freedom to information that they did not have access to before. Thus, the current dark night of the soul themes for the collective consciousness are about awakening to the reality of having been enslaved in a consciousness suppression system throughout the many years of mind control broadcasts of mental bondage and fear-based materialistic thought forms that are relentlessly propagated in the controller's manufactured death culture and slavery system. The hidden history of non-human entity invasion of the planet during the Ascension Timeline Rebellion that caused the Atlantean cataclysm and global human slavery begins to sprout seeds that opens up into the minds of the masses. As the cellular memories of an advanced human civilization and contact with other galactic faring species start to be seen or experienced in ways that can no longer be ignored, more of the collective fears dissolve. The inner desire to consciously participate with extracting ourselves away from the master-slave narratives manufactured and run by the death culture is expanding so that choosing love and unity with life and desiring to live in greater harmony with the natural world and others starts to become a much more important value system. These inner realizations suddenly give us an interest in exploring more deeply the causal events behind what is happening in our world today, inquiring upon the historical events that have led us to co-create civilizations filled with such immense global human suffering and slavery. When we shift our mental attitudes to make room for prioritizing humanitarian value systems, knowing we are all in this consciousness transition together, we get an effortless boost forward in manifesting our divine purpose as the universal keys to personally experience true mental, emotional, and spiritual freedom as it is being graciously gifted to us. The disastrous hidden histories of the Ascension Timeline Rebellion recorded in the planetary matrix from this time period contain the causal seed event of the Great Thothian Betrayal and subsequent stages of negative alien agenda invasion, when angelic humanity and Earth's resources first became transactional commodities to be used by the intruder groups in their well-established galactic slave trading and bartering system. Yet because this tragic event began 22,000 years ago and reached its pinnacle during the Atlantean cataclysm, many humans are totally unaware that we are considered tradable commodities both on and off planet. We have been repeatedly mind-wiped, brainwashed, and ritually abused to forget who we are from the many cataclysmic resets, DNA unplugging, and erroneously absurd historical accounts given to explain away our advanced angelic human culture that existed before we became slaves after the Ice Age floods. Thus, the Ascension Timeline Rebellion is a significant marker in the hidden historical timelines of planetary invasion, as it is when assorted negative alien groups began to exchange treaties on and off planet, which included the systematic hunting down of Magi Grail line angelic humans for extermination, especially those that were from the lineages of the Blue Flame Melchizedek Templars that were protecting the planetary network. There was no warning to hide or prepare when the Great Thothian Betrayal gave our enemies all they needed to take us over, as the full-scale planetary invasion was launched from the interdimensional planes and space, which rained down electromagnetic destruction in the form of fires, explosions, earthquakes, and floods, directing technological weapons designed for the maximum impact of grid damage and destabilization, unleashed the mass destruction of the holographic structures of the Sunstar networks connected to the sacred portals, stargates, ley lines, sundials, temples, and cathedrals across the planet. The invaders decided upon who would manage the conquered territories, carving up our world and human beings as commodities to be traded and bartered, while assigning angelic human diamond sun genetics for consciousness enslavement. This also ushered in the design of trauma-based mind control programs that were customized to manipulate tribal shield genetic key coding to be used for controlling the stargates and manipulating the global grid system. The negative alien agenda decided which of the native Essene tribes would be assigned to each of the intruding factions for serving their antichrist alien agendas that included ongoing abductions and human trafficking for genetic modification experiments, developing secret space programs and specialized slave work forces, alien hybridization and breeding programs, as well as identifying Magi Grail lineages from each Essene tribe that were specifically targeted for ongoing extermination and or red cube cloning based upon their historical DNA records. Through the management of human DNA and hybridization breeding programs, along with the intentional destruction of actual historical records, The negative alien agenda inserted false holographic timelines and false holographic identities for divide and conquer in order to hijack the collective co-creative consciousness for controlling the timelines to ultimately thwart planetary ascension. This is why this period, 22,000 years ago, is called the Ascension Timeline Rebellion, as the invaders began to work feverishly negotiating on and off planet treaties and cultivating strategic alliances in order to terraform the planetary grid, gaining control over human DNA, and manipulating the internal Templar system, gaining access into the Albion light body. Thus, their long-term strategy was thwarting every option imaginable for attaining consciousness freedom, with AI systems copying and cloning the instruction sets into reversal networks and phantom matrices in order to destroy the possibility of the planetary ascension cycle that was destined to begin when the universal gateways opened in 2012. Their long-term goals were continuing with negative alien agendas colonization strategies for enforcing reptilian ownership over human bloodlines, for carrying out their prison planet objectives, in which the intruders use human genetics as the currency exchange for on- and off-planet human trafficking, sexual slavery, and as products created for consumption. Earth became the most valuable real estate investment portfolio in the local solar system, filled with big business conglomerates mining genetic resources and extending into other planetary systems for bartering and trade that serve the interests of the invading races. The negative alien agenda has failed in their objectives to prevent the planetary ascension that is currently underway. However, Guardian Host and the ground crew are in the process of clearing out the miasmatic heaps of dead energy, archontic parasite nests, superimposed karmic loads, repairing grid networks damaged by artificial intelligence machinery, evictions of assorted alien factions, and related cleanup crew spiritual work connected to this string of tragic events when humanity was turned into a slave race 22,000 years ago.